Good morning, everybody. Oh, goodness. That was very creepy. Okay, like I said a little bit ago, we are starting a new unit today. So we are still in the Old Testament. We're going to be in the Old Testament until August of next year. Okay, August of 2026. Okay, hopefully we'll get it done before the school year starts. But that means we got to keep on going. Okay. So we're starting history. This is unit 2 of 5. This is also a pretty big unit. Okay, it covers Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, I ran out of fingers, Nehemiah, Esther. Okay, so that's 5, 10, 11, 12 books, and they're not short books. Ruth and Nehemiah, I think, are short books, but the rest are pretty lengthy. Okay, some of them we're going to spend just 1 or 2 weeks on. A few of them in the middle, the 1st and 2nds, we're spending 3 weeks on each of those books. Okay, because there's a lot to it. If you have any questions about that, or if you want to see what's coming up, that calendar thing right up there has not just what book we're doing, but also what section of the book. So like today, it says we're doing Joshua 1 through 12, and it also has the title, which is Conquest of Canaan. And it has that for every week that we are doing this, okay? And it's color-coded, and there's some breaks in there, so it's nice. Enjoy that. Okay, like I said, we're in Joshua, the first book of history, and we are in lesson 1, the conquest of Canaan. Okay, there are 2 words in there that you might not understand. What is a conquest?
Like a quest.
It's like a quest.
Mission.
Like a mission, okay?
Quest to conquer.
A quest to conquer. That's a very good definition, especially for today. A quest to conquer. All right, and what is Canaan?
It's a place.
What's another word for Canaan? Or 2 words?
The land. Promised land.
The promised land, okay? Canaan is the name that we would understand as promised land, okay? So we are going into the promised land with a quest to conquer, okay? So we've been wandering for 40 years in the wilderness because the Israelite spies sent a bad report and the people rebelled, and God said, okay, you don't get to go into the promised land because you didn't want to. Fine. And you have to wander around for 40 years in the wilderness before you can go into the promised land. And then they wandered, and then Moses was getting old and getting ready to die, and he gave the law to the new generation, and that was Deuteronomy, the 2nd law. And then he wrote everything down, and then he said, Joshua, you're going to be in charge. And then God said, Joshua, you're going to be in charge. And then God said, Joshua, you're going to be in charge again. And then Moses died, and then Joshua was in charge. Whoa. Okay, and so now this new generation, people who were like babies or not even born when they left Egypt, are now the people going into the promised land. Wow. All right. We already opened with prayer. Thank you, Mr. Devon, for that.
Amen.
Okay, now the people watching on YouTube won't have a prayer.
Dear Lord, bless the people on YouTube. Amen. All right, so today we are in Joshua 1 through 12 is the conquest of Canaan. Then 13 through 24 next week is once they conquered the land, they had to distribute it among the tribes. Okay. Then we're going to be in Judges, and so that takes place like right as soon as the book of Joshua is done. There's actually some overlap. The beginning of Judges, Joshua is still alive, and then he dies, which happened at the end of Joshua. And we see what happens when Israel is without a designated leader. And for a while, different people pop up that God chooses to lead Israel in one way or another. And you can see it's the cycle of chaos. They do the right thing, they do the wrong thing. They do the right thing, they do the wrong thing, right? And it ends with moral collapse and anarchy, which we can talk about when we get there, what anarchy means. But then after that, there's a little insert because Ruth happens during the book of Judges. Yeah, it's basically, here's the story of the Judges, and then Ruth is like, this also happened over here during that. We just wanted it to be separate for some reason. And then to end this pre-monarchy bit of history, we're going to start 1 Samuel with chapters 1 through 7 because Samuel is the last judge. So we're starting 1 Samuel because there's overlap in pre-monarchy and monarchy, because most of Samuel is getting a king and what happens next. But it starts with the last judge, so there's overlap. It's a Venn diagram. Samuel's in the middle. Okay? And then we will move on into the first and seconds and what happens when Israel finally has a king and how everything goes good and bad. All right? So today we were reading Joshua 1 through 12. How did the reading go for everybody? Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs middle?
I'm more of like in between down and middle.
Okay. Kind of mixed review. Okay. Okay. For those of you who are middle or lower, follow along. For those of you who are middle and higher, tell us what happened. Fill us in. Okay? All right. Everybody opening up Bible and notes. Because we are in Joshua chapters 1 through 6. So the first half of the assigned reading. All right. Somebody tell me what happens in chapter 1.
God talks to Joshua and saying that since Moses died, you're going to be the leader of the people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's kind of, it happened at the end of Deuteronomy. It also happens here that God is talking to Joshua. And here it's, okay, Moses is dead. That means you're in charge, right? Okay. Does anybody else have anything to add for chapter 1? Yeah.
God repeats himself twice, but he said it 3 times to be strong and courageous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you remember back in Deuteronomy 31, it's a very similar conversation, but while Moses was still alive, and Moses told the people of Israel, be strong and courageous when you go into the land. The Lord is going to be with you. And then he tells Joshua in front of everybody, be strong and courageous when you lead these people into the land, because God is going to be with you. And then later, God tells Joshua, be strong and courageous as you lead these people, because I am going to be with you. And then here in Joshua 1, he says it again and again and again. 3 more times he says, be strong and courageous, because I'm going to be with you. Right? Yeah, we're going to talk more about that at Timber Creek this afternoon. So, yeah, we're going to focus on Joshua 1:9 for that time. What?
Being strong like bull.
Like what?
Bull.
Bull. Strong like a bull. Yeah. Yep. All right. And then Joshua takes over. And it even ends with, I believe, the people of Israel saying to Joshua, be strong and courageous. I think that's kind of cool. Like, that's kind of a theme throughout this book, is be strong and courageous. Don't be frightened and don't be discouraged, because the Lord your God is with you and is going to fight your battles for you. There you go. We've talked about all of Joshua now. Be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged. The Lord your God is with you and fighting your battles. Okay, class dismissed. No, just kidding. Okay, what happens in chapter 2?
So Joshua sent spies into the land, and then they were looking for them, and they had hid them, and then she was saved, kind of, basically.
Yep. Joshua sends some spies in specifically to check out this first fortified city of Jericho. And they go in, and there's a woman who has a pretty bad job, not really the kind of person that you think that God would use, right? She's a prostitute, and she saves these spies, hides them, gives them what they need to know, and sends the guards off on a wild goose chase to keep the spies safe. And they say, okay, because you've done this, here's a sign to put in your window so that when we come back and kill everyone, you'll be safe. You and your family, everyone in your house is going to be safe.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. All right. So she did a good thing, and we'll talk more about her in a little bit. All right. Anything else from chapter 2? Okay. What happens in chapter 3? Kind of chapter 3 and 4 are kind of lumped together. What happens? Yeah.
Israel's traveling and they cross the Jordan River.
Yeah, that's a big deal. That's what they've been waiting for 40 years. Ever since they left Egypt, they've been headed toward this moment. And finally, they get across the Jordan River into the Promised Land as a whole nation, not just as a handful of spies, but everybody is now in the Promised Land. Okay? What happens that's kind of a little out of the ordinary? One might even say miraculous.
The river stops.
Open to them.
Yeah, it's kind of a repeat of crossing the Red Sea on a smaller scale, but still impressive because it was the Jordan River in flood season, and
It just split open.
yeah, the water stopped.
So when they left Egypt, parted waters, and they walked across the Promised Land.
Yeah. It's a very much a mirror image of when you're leaving, going into the wilderness, parting the water, and you can go through safely, getting from a bad place to a good place, at least not Egypt. But then they turned the wilderness into a bad place by sinning and being kind of banished into the wilderness for 40 years. And now a repeat of that, going from the bad place of the wilderness into the good place of the Promised Land by parting the waters going through. Yeah. It's like poetry. It rhymes. Yeah. Okay. So that's what happens in chapter 3 and 4. In chapter 4, they also take stones out of the Jordan River. A person from each tribe takes a big rock and they set it up kind of as a memorial so that future generations see this rock or this pile of rocks and is like, what's up with that? And they can say, this is what?
It's the family rock.
It's the family rock, right? They can say, the Lord brought us through the Jordan River. These are rocks from the Jordan River because God brought us through. It's a memorial. It's stick a rock in your shoe. You're going to think about that a lot, right? It's basically that. All right. We're at chapter 5. What happens there? Everybody's like, I'm not going to say it. I'm not. Okay, the new generation is circumcised. So they follow that covenant that God made way back with Abraham that there's a physical sign of the promise that God made. And this new generation, since they left Egypt, hadn't gone through that physical sign of the promise. And so they do that. It's kind of weird that they get into enemy territory and then God says, do a thing that's going to put all of your fighting men out of commission for several days. Faith. Trust.
Huzzah.
Yeah. That's big time faith. That God is going to keep us safe while we are in enemy territory. We couldn't have done that like 2 days ago while we were all pretty safe over here. We got to come in where we know people are going to try and kill us. And then we're going to put our whole army out of commission.
Make it make
Okay.
sense.
But they did it. Doesn't say that they fought it. They just did it. And then what happens in like the second half of chapter 5? There's two pretty important things.
They celebrate Passover. They celebrate Passover for the first time,
Mhm.
not like in the wilderness. when
Yeah.
It was actually happening.
Yeah, they celebrate right now it's their big holiday, right? The day that they remember how they got out of Egypt, they celebrate that. So that also tells us that we are in the first month of the year. And if you look back at the beginning of Deuteronomy, they were in the 11th month of the 40th year out of Egypt, which means now we are in the first month of the 41st year. So we're past the 40-year mark, and now finally, it's basically a New Year's celebration in the Promised Land. New year, new land, new me, all that.
It was like 1999 New Year's Eve.
Sure, yeah.
What?
Yeah, big celebration.
The end
Yep.
of chapter 5 says that the army of the Lord, aka angels, came and talked to Joshua.
Yeah, so they celebrate the Passover. At that point, manna stops showing up. They are eating the produce of their new land. And then as they're by Jericho, the commander of the Lord's army shows up to Joshua and gives him some commands, right? Some marching orders on how to defeat this first big stronghold of Jericho. And that conversation continues right into chapter 6, because remember, the big numbers that you see and even the verse numbers that you see are not part of Scripture. That's something that was added later so that we can say Joshua 1:9 is this. Not just somewhere at the beginning of Joshua it says this, right? It's for our benefit. It wasn't inspired by God and written by Joshua or whoever wrote these books. Those numbers came later. So chapter 5 and 6, that section right there is one conversation. And we'll talk about that and why that's important a little bit later. But this commander of the Lord's army comes in and gives him commands. What are the commands of how to defeat Jericho? You go in there with catapults, trebuchets, chariots, war horses.
Nah, just walk them till they fall over.
Keep walking, but you won't knock down our wall. Keep
walking.
She isn't going to fall. It's plain to see your brains are very small. To sing walking would be knocking down. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this commander of the Lord's army says, go in there, walk around the city one time, and then you're done for the day. Next day, you get up, walk around the city one time, then you're done for the day. Do that every day for the whole week. And then on the 7th day, walk around 7 times.
I'm curious how big the
Okay.
city is.
Probably pretty big. It probably would have taken them all day for that 7 times. And then at the end of walking around 7 times, then you shout and go in and the city will be yours. Right? And they do that. It says that that's exactly what happens. There wasn't any questioning. There wasn't any like, are you sure
There's,
we
like,
shouldn't
cities
like
ours now.
build a
Okay.
catapult or something to knock the wall down? Are you sure? Just walking around? Okay. Because they had just seen the power of God over nature, and now they're seeing the power of God over man-made structures. And so the rest of chapter 6, they do that, and the wall falls flat, and they can go in. And what do they do? Is there did Joshua fight the battle of Jericho, or did Joshua lead the massacre at Jericho? Does it say that there was a battle?
Massacre. Just as the fall of Jericho.
Yeah. Right. The walls fell flat, and the Israelites rushed in and killed everybody. That doesn't sound like a battle.
That sounds like
Joshua led the slaughter at Jericho. Jericho.
and he invaded with no opposition.
Yeah. And they were told to destroy everything. Go in, kill everyone, destroy everything. Everything is devoted to destruction, is the words that it used in my Bible. Right? And that was God's command. You're not taking the gold and silver and things. You're fine. Destroy everything. Right? Except for Rahab and her family in her household. Everything else, destroy. Okay? All right, let's identify some main verses leading up to and through the battle/slaughter at Jericho. And then we'll talk about whether or not they followed all of the commands that God gave them. Joshua 1:9.
My favorite verse for a while.
Absolutely. And what does Joshua 1:9 say?
Be strong and
Leah, what does it say?
Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous, do not be frightened or dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go.
Absolutely. That is the big summary of the whole book. Yep. All right. Any other main verses from these first 6 chapters? Yeah.
6:27. So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame was in all the land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Joshua became famous or infamous throughout Canaan because everyone else heard about what happened at Jericho. Lydia, you had something?
Joshua 3:7. The Lord said to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all of Israel, that they may know that as I was with Moses, so I will be with you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Again, the Lord is saying, I will be with you wherever you go. Just like I was with Moses leading the people and all the things that he did, I will be with you as you lead the people.
6:16. And at the seventh time, when the priest had blown the trumpet, Joshua said to the people, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city.
Mm-hmm.
And the city and all that was within it shall be devoted to the Lord for destruction. Only Rahab the prostitute, and all who live within her house shall live, because she hid the messengers from whom we sent."
Yep. Shiloh?
3 verse 3.
3:3. What does that say?
And he commanded the people, as soon as you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God being carried by the Levitical priest, then you shall set out from your place and follow it.
So it's not just the Lord will be with you, but it's also you be with the Lord. When the ark goes out, you go out with it. That way you see what the Lord does for you. Yeah. Last one.
Joshua 6:27. So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame was in all of the land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he became famous throughout Canaan.
I know this is the fall of AI.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
Sorry.
All right. Yeah. So let's talk about if Rahab was right or wrong to lie about the spies. Okay, so back in chapter 2, right? The spies come in, and Rahab takes them into her house and gives them some information, and then the guards are coming, and she hides them. And then the guards come in, say, "Have you seen these people?" And what does she say?
No. They went that way.
Yeah, she said, no, she doesn't just say, "Oh, I don't know where they are. I haven't seen." She's like, "Yeah, they were here, and then now they're off over there in the hill country. I bet you if you run, you could catch them." It's like a very specific lie. It's not just like,
Oh yeah. They're probably asking.
"I don't know what you're talking about."
They're probably did they specifically ask her?
They could have been going door to door asking everyone, or
They could have
She's
seen
a prostitute.
Maybe she was just the first person that they saw. And
I see three options: door to door asking everyone.
they saw.
They could have seen spies or got reports of these foreign people in her house and just following up on a lead. Also, she's a prostitute. If you're looking for men or someone who knows about men, yeah, she probably had seen them.
And also because her house is in the wall, and so she could have seen them leave.
That's okay. There's a fourth option. Her house was part of the wall. Like the window that they tell her to put the scarlet rope out is part of the wall. And so, yeah, if someone's coming in or out sneakily, maybe she was staring out the window and saw these couple people sneaking by. Don't know. But she straight up lies to the authorities and says, "They are off that way. Go look for them." So was she right or wrong to lie to the authorities? Yeah.
It's not a disrespectful lie. It's more of like keeping God's people like safe.
Mm-hmm. Does that make it not a lie?
Well, it's
Still
still
did
a lie.
lie.
She still lied.
She could have said, yeah.
What
they were
does the
here.
law say about lying?
You shouldn't do it.
That's one of the 10 commandments. Like
But she
the way to
probably
summarize
doesn't
all
know
the
about
laws
the
here.
10 commandments.
Probably
It
not,
was
but still.
Wrong of her to lie, but
Why her? She did it for the right
God's
reasons.
yeah. So she's
What?
It was
still
for God's
It
people.
was for God's people, yeah.
yeah.
But a lie is
She's
a
still
lie.
shouldn't.
A lie is a
Sometimes
lie.
God, like, God said for like his people to kill everyone in the thing, so it's sort of like,
God's not lying when he says that.
yeah.
Yeah, but he
But-
told them to do that. He didn't tell her to lie. She
Mm.
just did it.
That's a good point. Because
So
Rachel, you're talking like at the end of this week's reading, they go through the land and they murder. Like they kill people, right? But that was God's command to kill people. Which means you're not breaking the law if God specifically tells you to do something that otherwise would be killing, breaking the law.
It doesn't say it, but Rahab could have had a vision or something, or
The Holy
she could have
Spirit.
just
said-
had her heart tugged and like, I should probably protect these people.
Yeah.
Like probably the Holy Spirit maybe like came
Maybe.
down upon her and
Maybe.
like,
Doesn't specifically say that. And at this time, the Holy Spirit coming to someone is a really,
Very rare.
like, yeah,
yeah.
it doesn't
Usually it's
exactly happen.
noted if that happens in
Yeah.
the Old Testament.
Yeah.
They make sure you know.
God must have somehow told her because Ray had said that she knew that the Lord sent them.
In
Yeah.
verse 14, it says the spies told her, or asked her not to say anything.
Okay, so let me change the question then. Were the spies right or wrong to request that Rahab lie? Because that's a good point. They did say,
Don't.
if you don't tell of our business, then when the Lord gives us this land, we will deal kindly and faithfully with you.
They did not say to lie. They said not to tell the business.
So is withholding the truth a lie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lie of omission, right? Leaving something out.
Even if you say, I don't know, and you do know, that's a lie.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
This is a tricky conversation, right? This is morals and ethics and things like that.
Stuff college students will sit in classes for hours,
Mhm.
And discuss.
And
discuss, try
debate.
to debate
Right.
sometimes.
yeah.
What's right?
So to try to answer this, because I'll tell you this, I don't have an actual answer. Again, college students, college professors will sit and debate things like this for hours and not come up with an answer because there's kind of not really an answer. Is it okay to do one bad thing in order to stop another bad thing from happening? Well, there's the same number of bad things happening, right?
It
If
depends on
if
what
all
bad thing is.
sin is equal, if lying and a double homicide are the same, there's the same number of bad things whether you lie and allow the spies to live or you tell the truth and allow the guards to kill these spies. The same number of bad things is happening. So is it okay to do a bad thing to prevent a bad thing?
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, in our world today,
No.
in our world today, it would be seen like if you had to lie to protect people from dying, that's an obvious. Lying's not that bad, but but in God's eyes, that's.
Yeah, in God's eyes,
Yeah.
That's like,
it's all the same.
no.
But yeah, this exact problem happened in Nazi Germany, right? The Nazis come and knock on your door and say, "Are you harboring any Jews here? And you have some Jews in your basement, keeping them safe. What do you do?"
I don't want to answer that.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Personal problem.
Just-
No, it's not honestly I'm getting murdered, but like, I may or may not have some. There.
I don't speak German.
But then you pulled
I
up.
do not
What's a Jew?
understand.
Yeah.
What's a Jew?
Respond with a question. Do you have Jews in your
No, just say, what's a Jew?
I have
That's
this one. I
lying.
think I have.
No, you didn't ask me what's a Jew. You didn't say that you know it's
All right,
a Jew.
so-
That's what's a Jew.
Let me ask you this. What is the difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law?
A
Have you
letter
heard
is-
those two terms? Letter of the law and spirit of the law.
Nope.
Kind of? All right,
So
Leah.
the spirit of the law is like doing it with a willful heart, like loving. Like,
Okay.
Like, in Deuteronomy it says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength." You like do the law with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength to honor God.
Okay. I think you're on the right track. So what's the letter of the law?
A letter.
The Ten Commandments, Leviticus, like
What
the
the
on
law
paper law.
tells you
Yeah,
to
the
do.
on paper. What do the words say?
And then
The words of the law say, don't bear false witness, don't lie. They also say don't murder, right? That's the letter of the law. Do not lie. Okay? What is the spirit of the law?
The spirit.
Cyrus, you got something?
I don't know if it's right, but what God says to do specifically, even if it's like not in the Bible. Well, kind of.
Kind of.
It's one of those things that you know in your head, but you don't know how to spend words.
Yeah.
Well, it's like if God tells them to murder a bunch of people, He could tell them to lie about their whereabouts and stuff, and if they knew it was God, they would do it.
Yeah.
But He never specifically said to lie.
How about the word intent? Do you know what the word intent? Lydia?
Like kind of planning to do something.
A plan.
Like
Okay.
you want to do it, like you mean to do it.
Okay.
Kind of like I intend to do this.
Okay. Yeah.
I intend to go to
Yeah.
Doesn't
Okay.
make sense.
So the spirit of the law is it's the meaning behind the words. So you have the letter of the law that says do not lie. The spirit of the law is Like, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Do what honors God. Okay? Most of the time, like 99.9% of the time, that means do not lie. Okay? But in this case, lying to protect someone honored God. So was Rahab right to do that?
Yeah.
I think so. And I can prove it if you look, I will look so that you don't have to turn, at Matthew chapter 1, the genealogy of Jesus Christ. Okay? If you look at verse 5, Salmon, the father of Boaz by Rahab, and Boaz, the father of Obed by Ruth. So Rahab is in the genealogy of Jesus. Rahab, the prostitute, the liar, the spy saver, is Jesus's like great, so on and so forth, grandmother. I think she might have done something right. Plus, the Lord saved her when they came into the land. Right? Okay, we're going to keep going. The commander of the Lord's army. Let's talk about that. So, the end of Joshua 5, the beginning of Joshua 6, the commander of the Lord's army shows up and talks to Joshua. Who do we think the commander of the Lord's army is?
Jesus,
Why do you think that?
because it says a man.
Okay. Who else?
Also,
Angel.
An angel?
what's his name? Gabriel?
Gabriel or Michael?
Michael.
One of those angels? Okay.
Another angel.
I am going to say that I think Leah is correct. I think this is Jesus. And I will tell you why.
It's kind of like not necessarily, but kind of foreshadowing the when Jesus comes down
Oh, yeah.
and he'll say,
Yeah.
I think it is Jesus too, because usually when like one of the guys falls down to worship this mystical being coming out of the sky, the being says, "Do not worship me." But this time the being did not say that.
Yeah.
So it's
In Revelation 19, John bows in worship before an angel who's giving him these prophecies. And the angel says, don't do that. That's not for me. That's for God. But here, Joshua worships this commander of the Lord's army. And the commander of the Lord's army lets it happen. And then he says, take off your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy.
yeah.
Who else said that, and when else was that?
It was when God was talking to Moses when he was in the burning bush.
Yeah.
He said, take off your sandals because for now this is holy ground.
Yeah. What made that ground holy?
It's because his presence were there.
Yeah. The presence of Yahweh made that place holy. As far as I'm aware, this is the only other time that someone is commanded to take off their sandals because the place that they stand is holy.
Take your shoes off.
And then continuing that very same conversation in chapter 6, because remember I said the chapter breaks are added in later. So if you just read as though it's the same paragraph and you get rid of the breaks, it's the same conversation in verse 2. And the Lord said to Joshua, the Lord, all caps, Yahweh himself, said to Joshua in this very same conversation where Joshua is talking to the commander of the Lord's army, Yahweh said to Joshua, see, I have given Jericho into your hand. So up here, at the end of 5, it's the commander of the Lord's army. A couple verses later, in the same exact conversation, it is Yahweh himself. Let me ask you this. Who is the commander-in-chief of the United States military?
A person.
I have no idea.
I was about to say Donald Trump.
Yeah, me too.
You were about to say the right answer, Leah.
Yeah.
The President of the United States
Bill.
The leader of the country is the leader, the commander of that country's military. Okay, what country are we talking about if it's the Lord's army? Heaven. The kingdom of heaven. Who would be the commander-in-chief of the armies of heaven? The Lord, Yahweh, right? And in John chapter 5 and 6, Jesus says, no man has seen or even heard the Father, which tells me anytime the Lord shows up and says something, or anytime the Lord shows up in bodily form in the Old Testament, Joshua saw Jesus, which is really cool because they have the same name.
Yep.
Did you know that? Joshua, Yeshua. Jesus' Hebrew name is the same as Joshua's name. Jesus is just kind of the Greek, Latin version.
Oh,
So here,
the translation to
Yeshua, son of Nun, was speaking to Yeshua, son of God. That's pretty cool. Okay, we're going to move on. You don't have any other questions? All right, second half of the first half of Joshua. Okay, so they went through Jericho. They were commanded to destroy everything, everyone. And did they destroy everything? Yo. Okay. The answer is not quite. Okay. Chapter 7 says the people of Israel broke faith in regard to the devoted things, the things that were supposed to be destroyed, because one dude, Achan, son of Carmi, one dude kept some stuff. And then Israel went after this next city of AI, not artificial intelligence, not that. They went after this next city, and they sent, I think it was 3,000 of their soldiers, because they were like, oh yeah, it's easy peasy, lemon squeezy, we don't need everybody, just 3,000. And that army of 3,000 were pushed back. It didn't work. And Joshua's like, what? Why didn't this happen? And God said, because you disobeyed. And there's a whole process, but this one dude was found out, and it turns out he had kept some like gold and silver and like fancy blankets and stuff from Jericho instead of destroying it. And he was stoned and burned, along with everything that he owned, including the people of his household.
Oh.
Right? Am I right about that?
Family killed, man.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading that now.
Right? Yeah.
Loser.
Dad, what'd you do to us?
And then what happens in chapter 8? They go back to fight AI again. And what happens this time?
They die.
What?
They take
Like AI dies.
Israel defeats this same city that they tried to defeat, but God wasn't with them the first time. Because one person in the whole nation, one person disobeyed God. He had one job. Yeah.
One job.
One person made a difference for the entire nation. One person. All right. And then chapter 9, there's some of their neighbors. What?
They once again don't obey.
Yeah, once again, they don't obey. They were tricked this time because some of their neighbors deceived them, dressed as though they were travelers, claimed to be from way far away, and had heard what God had done to the Egyptians and wanted to come out and make peace with Israel. And 9:14 says they did not ask counsel from the Lord. The leaders of Israel did not get God's approval to make this peace treaty.
They were just like, yeah.
They were just
totally.
like, yeah, absolutely. You respect Yahweh. You heard about him. You came to make peace. Absolutely. Let's do it.
Oh gosh.
And then a little bit later, it's revealed that
They're evil.
they're actually some of our enemies that were scared of us and wanted protection from us. And then the enemies of those enemies who heard that these people sided with Israel came and attacked. And the Lord allowed Israel to defend these people that they made a peace treaty with so that they wouldn't break their word. But they ended up turning those neighbors into basically their servants. People that are like woodcutters and water bucket puller-uppers at the well. Basically servants. We're not going to wipe you out, but you're going to be our servants. Yes, Lucy?
Were they taking advantage, did they know and were they taking advantage of the rule in Leviticus 19:33 when a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you should do him the law?
Whether or not they knew about it, they were taking advantage of it.
They
Yeah.
were trying to like take advantage of.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Or that's what they might have relied on, is, oh, that's what the law says, so we'll do it, without doing any kind of checking or counseling,
Yep.
double checking with the Lord.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then there's a battle between 5 kings in Canaan that come against Israel. And the Lord is definitely with Israel in this battle because it says that God sent giant stones from heaven that crushed more people than the Israelites killed with the sword in this battle. So God did more fighting than the Israelites did in this battle. And then as Israel was pursuing their enemies, Joshua prayed to God that the sun would stand still so that they wouldn't like have to take a break because it's night and dark and they can't really see where they're going. And Joshua asked that the sun stand still, and God said, okay, let's do it. Bet. And the sun stood still, or the earth stood. God did a miracle, not just on earth, but in the heavens and the earth. And he stopped the normal progression of the celestial bodies, right? And Joshua was able to defeat these 5 kings. He locked them in a cave, went out and defeated the rest of their armies, came back and executed them. And then the rest of 10 and 11 and 12 says that Israel went through and destroyed everything, basically. All right? And 12 says that Moses, on the other side of the river, defeated 2 kings. Joshua in the Promised Land now defeated 31 kings. And if you do some math in chapter 14, I'm not going to detail it right now, but you can see that they were only in the Promised Land for about 5 years and defeated 31 kings and subdued the land. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay. 2 main verses. Who's got them?
All of the verses.
All right. That's not one of them.
All of them.
I will give you what I think is the main verse for all of that. Chapter 11, verse 18. Joshua made war a long time with all those kings. That pretty much sums it up. There was war for a long time with those kings.
Yeah.
All right? Let's talk about how our individual choices affect those around us. So going back to, what was his name? Achan. Achan, son of Carmi, in chapter 7. One dude disobeyed God because he was selfish, thinking about himself, wanting some gold and silver and some pretty blankets. and kept something from Jericho when it was all supposed to be destroyed. One dude out of how many people did we say the nation of Israel is? Like 1 million, 2 million, something big number? One dude
600 and something.
decided to slightly disobey God. And that affected the entire nation. They suffered a nationwide defeat against AI because of one dude. One dude. Okay? Think about yourself and the choices that you make and how that affects the people around you. One person out of like 1 million did something wrong and everyone else had to suffer. When you make a bad decision, even if it's something innocent, all this stuff's going to be destroyed. No one's going to miss this handful of stuff. That was an innocent mistake or an innocent choice, right? If it goes against God's direct command, it's bad. And it's going to affect the people around you. Okay? Now, it might not affect the whole nation that you're living in, but it might, right? It might only affect the people that are closest to you, your closest family and friends. If you choose this sin and it affects you and how you act, and then that bleeds into how you have your relationships with the people closest to you, right? Everything we do affects people around us. Not to mention, every choice you make affects your future. That's countless people, because that can also be your offspring or lack thereof, or the next generation of your offspring, right? Every choice that you make affects a lot of people when you think of it that way. Okay? No person is an island. That's something that my dad liked to say a lot. Every time I did something wrong that affected the rest of the family, no person is an island. We are all connected.
There's like a poem on that.
Probably. All right. This last discussion point, I want it to be kind of a self-reflection. And then if you want to share that with someone else in this group outside of class, I would strongly encourage you to do that. But think about, and then if you want to share with someone else, the battles that the Lord has won for you. Okay? The battle that the Israelites fought, where they did some of the stabbing, but God did the rest of the crushing with hailstones and also allowing the sun to stand still. How has God fought your battles? Maybe not that miraculously and dramatically and violently, but what spiritual battles have you been through that God has fought for you? Have you ever punched a demon? You don't have to answer that, but I'm going to guess the answer is no. You have never punched a demon. When was the last time that God didn't punch a demon for you? Right? He fights your battles. Okay, so be thinking about that. Come up with something. Share it with the rest of the group if you want to, or just pick one person in the group to share it with. I think that would be helpful. All right? To share the glory that God has won for himself. Okay? If you have any other questions about this section, we can talk about them some other time. Unless it's super duper important right now. Nope? Okay. There's your homework. Read the second half of Joshua. Memorize Joshua 1:9. Timber Creek is today in place of youth band. And this Thursday is Youth Fun Fellowship Extended Edition from 6:30 normal time till midnight. Okay? We're going to do our pretty much normal thing from 6:30 to 8:30. And then if people need to leave because they're not staying, that's fine. Then we'll have an after party. Extended edition, whatever you want to call it. Okay? Cool. Dear Lord, thank you so much for today. Thank you that you are always with us, fighting our battles even when we don't see it. Back in, I think it was Numbers, when you were fighting the battle even though the Israelites didn't even realize that they were in trouble. Thank you also that we can call on you to fight our battles for us, and you will do that. Thank you so much that you love us and you have our best in mind. Thank you for everything. In Jesus' name, amen.